Hello, my friend, and welcome to week 2 of our April Poetry Celebration. I'm so glad you're here, and I'm so glad you're excited to celebrate poetry this April. It's already been so much fun. So, I'm Kate Chadbourne, and I'm a poet and writer, and I'm hosting this poetry celebration with the journal makers Jumping Fox Design. This is one of their beautiful journals, the silver pages, and we'll talk a little bit more about them. I want to thank them right from the get-go here, though, because they are very generously providing us 3 journals as prizes in this celebration. More about that in a little bit. I want to get started today with reading some of the beautiful poems I received this week from 25 poets. That's amazing. Thank you, every single one of you who wrote to me. Thank you for your poems. Thank you for your wonderful encouragement, for your notes. It was a treasure trove to read your poems, and I have loved it. So I want to start with a poem that actually connects to one from last year. And this is a poem by Rosie Bundy. You may remember last year that she sent us a poem which, and I quote, was "Strawberry, Strawberry, Riding a Horse." It's one of my favorite poems now, of all time. And she writes a poem that actually extends that and quotes it this year. And Rosie is, I believe, 4 or 5. And it's called A Unicorn. I am going to the Unicorn Festival. Okay, we are 3 unicorns and we don't have anything on our backs. Lollipops in our backs, and we don't know anything about science. Strawberry, strawberry, riding a horse. Carrot, carrot, riding a horse. Love that. So that connects Rosie from one year to the next. And what a beautiful idea that is, that Rosie's at the beginning of a life of poetry, just as her big brother Declan is. I was also thrilled to receive this poem. You might recall last week, one of the poems, we had 2 poems about sort of magical trees. And one of them was called A Fairy Tree, and it was by my friend Anne, who's Rosie's mother. I received this poem from Danny Vinson, who is in Anne's poem called The Man from the South. And it's called The Fairy Tree. The lonely hawthorn, saved from the saw by the instinct of the cutter, who admired its smooth and colorful bark, not realizing its significance. Only years later was he enlightened by she who knew the magic of the tree. Its beautiful bright green is balanced by its dark, twisted, mysterious character. The sweet essence of its spring blossoms inspire in him energy and desire. But it's not so lonely after all, as it is sometimes the home of a family of birds, worms who build web houses, and it is the portal between worlds for fairies. So one poem connecting to another poem. I wrote to Danny that when I received his poem, I thought, now we're off to the races. So exciting. And finally, in this little section, I want to read you a poem by my friend Mike. And those of you who joined us last year may recall that Mike wrote some wonderful poems about his cat, who's called Catmandu, which is the best cat name ever. And I just loved this poem. It's called At the Vet by Mike Delaney. I needed to take my cat to the vet today. He was pretty sick. We had to wait in the parking lot for safety. A lady came out with an empty pet carrier. She was crying pitifully. My heart hurt for her. My cat was fine. We dodged a bullet. Such a true slice of life right there. Thank you for that, Mike. I just love that poem. Now, we had as a little gentle poetry assignment or poetry spark last week, you might remember that we were inspired by Emily Dickinson's poem, "A word is dead when it is said," some say. I say, it just begins to live that day. And we got some wonderful, I wish, I just want to say, I want to make space for every voice in our celebration, and I will try to make sure that everybody is read at least once. But if I had my druthers, I would probably read to you for about 2 hours, because every poem I received I loved. My friend Sharon sent me this poem in response to that "Some say, I say" prompt. The moon, and if you hear coughing, that is my cat, not Kathmandu, but Mishnach, the brave, who's coughing a little bit. He's just had his supper. The moon is just a block of ice, some say. I say, it lights the night and pulls the ocean. The cat is meant to kill the mice, some say. I say he is company and keeps me sane. Tears show signs of weakness, some say. I say, vulnerability shows strength. Masks just hide your face, so why, some say. I say, it allows me to live today. Thank you so much, Sharon. That is a poem for now and a poem for always. Powerful. I love it. I received this one from a new friend called Edie. Some say, sorry, not today, haven't the time, much too busy, things are crazy, plates too full, pitchers running over, not enough hours, hectic schedule. Oh, if you only knew. I would if I could, maybe later, maybe next week, but do keep in touch, okay? I say, stop, unplug, mute, shut it down, turn it off, pack it up. Find a quiet place, a soft chair. Close your eyes, fold your hands, take a breath, and trace the farthest sound into the sacred stillness, into that eternal moment of peace where time has no home. Isn't it wonderful what can come of the same thing? Sharon's poem, Edie's poem, same prompt, very different places to go with it. I also love this one from my friend Deborah Goss, who's a wonderful singer. Some say, you're so talented. I say, but so undisciplined. Some say, work on it. I say, I am, but I say, I like to fly, to float, to flit, to drift. Some say, why? Some say, you're not a bird. I say, I'm an air sign. Does that count? Some say, yes. Some say, no. I say, I fly, I fall. I say, try to glide, to connect one thing to the next for a while, then rest. I love that. I love that. I love that conversation. And just one more of our Some Say poems, again by a new friend. Her name is Melissa Mastro Stefano. And this one really speaks to my heart and to what we are doing together. All of us, we are celebrating and we are connecting with poetry for ourselves. Some say you are not a poet and cannot participate. I say I have the courage to try. Some say you're not good enough. I say my best is more than good enough. Some say your poem might be inferior. I say one's heart truth never needs to be compared. Some say poetry is only for writers. I say there's a poet inside of everyone. Some say poetry is boring. I say it's only for the daring and strong to move words, sounds, rhythms, and rhymes. Some say poetry is too hard to understand. I say, listen with your heart. It is simply how a poem moves you. Amen, Melissa, and thank you. We need that. We need that. Melissa's friend and my friend, Karen, gives us this delightful poem. I love it. Behold, I am midwife, delivering forth, pulling into the light, straining, out from black, murky soil, birthing, rope-like in length, parsnip. Did you see that coming? Because when I first read it, I didn't, but it's perfect, isn't it? It's wonderful. And my friend Bill, who writes, I think, magical haikus, gives us this one, our last from our community for the week. The heron dances. He scoops down to catch fish. I want to dance too. You can only imagine how I want to read every single one of the poems I've received. These are wonderful. All of them are wonderful. Thank you. And please keep them coming. Once again, this week, if you'd like to send me poems, please send them to me by next Friday. So, gracious, I'm so bad at dates, but today is the 11th, 12th. I think that's the 17th. Anyway, Friday at 5 o'clock. I'll put the date in the comments below. And if it's possible, put all your poems for the week in one email. And if it's possible, again, if you can put them in one attachment or just in the body of the email, that just saves me a bit of opening emails. But whatever you can do, I'm really glad. So thank you. Thank you, everybody, for your poems. So this week, I want to share with you a book which is all about our theme. And it's this one. It's called Conversation Pieces. And the subtitle is Poems That Talk to Other Poems. And that's really what we're about. So there's so many things in here, and I agonized over what to share with you because I'd like to read you the book. But I'm going to start with a poem that I bet many of you know well, and it's by William Carlos Williams, and it's called This Is Just to Say. And I'm going to read you a series of little poems that answer it. So here's William Carlos Williams' wonderful poem. This is just to say, I have eaten the plums that were in the icebox, and which you were probably saving for breakfast. Forgive me. They were delicious, so sweet and so cold. Don't you love that poem? It has spawned so many poems. I love it. And in fact, you can imagine what we might be doing this week if you wish. So I want to read, Kenneth Cook wrote Variations on a Theme by William Carlos Williams. And I'm going to read them for you because I love them. So you can imagine, just keep in your mind the echo of This Is Just to Say. 1. I chopped down the house that you had been saving to live in next summer. I'm sorry, but it was morning and I had nothing to do, and its wooden beams were so inviting. 2. We laughed at the hollyhocks together, and then I sprayed them with lye. Forgive me, I simply do not know what I am doing. Yikes. 3. I gave away the money that you had been saving to live on for the next 10 years. The man who asked for it was shabby, and the firm March wind on the porch was so juicy and cold. 4. This is the last one. Last evening we went dancing, and I broke your leg. Forgive me. I was clumsy, and I wanted you here in the wards, where I am the doctor. So those are wacky and inventive and clever and funny and a bit eerie, and I love them. So that's something to play with. And just one more pairing that I could not resist reading to you. This one is a little bit more involved, but I think it really repays us. This first poem is by Pablo Neruda, and it's called Fable of the Mermaid and the Drunks. And as a mer person myself, this poem is important to me, and the pair that you'll hear in a moment. So this is Pablo Neruda, Fable of the Mermaid and the Drunks. All these gentlemen were there inside when she entered, utterly naked. They had been drinking and began to spit at her. Recently come from the river, she understood nothing. She was a mermaid who had lost her way. The taunts flowed over her glistening flesh. Obscenities drenched her golden breasts. A stranger to tears, she did not weep. A stranger to clothes, she did not dress. They pocked her with cigarette ends and with burnt corks, and rolled on the tavern floor with laughter. She did not speak, since speech was unknown to her. Her eyes were the color of faraway love. Her arms were matching topazes. Her lips moved soundlessly in coral light, and ultimately she left by that door. Scarcely had she entered the river than she was cleansed, gleaming once more like a white stone in the rain. And without a backward look, she swam once more, swam toward nothingness, swam to her dying. I will say nothing about that, just to give you this as an answer. So this is called The Mermaid Takes Issue with the Fable, after Neruda. And the poet is called Suzanne Frischkorn. And she was born in 1970. And she had an answer for Pablo's poem. I came into the tavern totally naked, that's true. And those drunk men inside began to spit. I was from the sea and I knew a thing or two. Yes, a mermaid, but I had not lost my way. The insults bounced off my gleaming scales, obscenities reflected in my tawny breasts. Oh, I know tears, but on this we agree. I did not weep tears. I know clothes, and I did not have clothes. They blackened me with burnt corks and cigarette stubs and rolled around laughing on the tavern floor, yes. I did not speak because they would not have listened. My eyes were the color of close hatred. My arms made of white diamonds. My lips moved, a whisper. In light of the anemone darts, white threads centered and caught by each gaping mouth. Entering the sea, I was rinsed, clear like an empty mug of beer, and without looking, I swam toward fullness, swam toward life. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, so you can see that's really a remarkable answer, and that she has literally quoted and inverted some of Pablo Neruda's lines to make her fresh poem. I find that so exciting and inspiring. And I want to read just one more pairing. Years ago, I was lucky to teach a wonderful young girl, and I shared with her a poem that I had written in the voice of a character in a young adult book that I wrote. And the character is called Cassie. And I imagine that Cassie was, I think, about 13 years old, and that she was a budding young poet, and that she wrote this poem, which is called The Wind. Who unwrinkles the flag and holds out its stripe? The wind. Who chases the leaves until they collapse in a giggle? The wind. Who polishes your ears like two seashells? The wind. Who puts a long silver hand into the river? The wind. Who stirs the world's dreams like tea in a cup? The wind. So that was my little poem, and I shared it with my beloved young student, Azy, and I gave her a challenge to write a kind of who poem. Who does this? And one answer. And I just love this poem so much. It's called, well, I'm not going to tell you what it's called because you'll find out soon enough. Who puts milk in your tea? The goats. Who eats the leaves in your driveway? The goats. Who jumps on rocks? The goats. Who lays by the stars? The goats. Who rides the wind? The goats. Isn't that wonderful? What a fun response. I just love it so much. So it's been fun reading all these poems. It's been fun thinking about poems, and it's also been fun for me writing lots more messy drafts all week. And I just wanted to say about, again, a beautiful journal like this. I have a kind of like a sacred rule for myself, which is use it up. And I mean that for, it's really tempting to hoard beautiful journals, and it's tempting to keep your best markers, and it's tempting to hoard your washi tape or your stickers. But the truth is, now is the time. And so I challenge myself to use it up, to write, to make a mess. And surely, again, you've seen some of this, like, it really is a mess, and it's not attractive. It's not, Instagrammable the way people talk about, like when people set something up online and they take a picture of it, it always has a cup of tea and it looks beautiful. This doesn't. This just looks like a big, messy, drafty mess. And I'm okay with that entirely. So I just want to encourage you again, make a mess, use it up, enjoy. Now is the time. This is our April. We're being poets in April. I love that for us. So I just want to read just a quick little poem that I wrote this week. Everything gives us an idea for a poem, doesn't it? I called it an office, and well, you'll hear in the poem, but I was inspired to write this poem. It's called Please. Oh no, oh no. Well, we'll see. Maybe you were able to hear this. I don't know. All right. Anyway, we'll say that you're hearing it. It's called Please. Hold a minute, instructs the voice. Thank you, I answer the terseness. Farewell, please, and the flowers you carried. Please was a smile, even a weary one, and the light touch of, we're all in this together. Please was the glimmer of, you matter, and you're worth a gentle syllable. Please said, there is more to life than getting this done as quickly as possible. Please held out a hand of friendship. Opponents denounce it as formality, people-pleasing and inefficient. But we know the difference, and we are not pleased. Please, I'm asking you nicely, please come back. So, thank you for listening to that. Again, we have 3 of these beautiful journals as prizes for you. Again, how do you win a prize? You simply send me poems. And each week that you send me poems, you can send 1, you can send 7. You get an entry. And at the end of the month, I'll put all of the names in the hat, and I will draw out. And, if you have written 4 weeks, you'll have 4 of your name in the hat. And I will draw out the names, and we'll have prizes. It's just a bit of fun, but I'm really grateful. Thank you to Jumping Fox Design for wanting to play with us. I also want to thank the Academy of American Poets. Again, right behind me here is this beautiful poster. This is this year's beautiful poster with words by Joy Harjo, who's our poet laureate and who we heard last week. So we're really lucky to have help and friends in our celebration. So our spark this week is write a poem that answers another poem. So perhaps one of the poems that you heard this week, or perhaps write a who poem. So you might write a "This Is Just to Say" poem from our William Carlos Williams, or perhaps you'll write a who poem, as you heard from the poem that I wrote about the wind and that Azy wrote about the goats. So either one of those would be so fun. This is just to say, fill in the blank. Or who, and then make a poem that answers that question the same way every time. Just a fun thing. Or make up your own way of answering another poem. And finally, our poetry dare for this week. I'd just like to encourage you to do something really nice for yourself as a poet. What might that be? It could be that you give yourself an hour with tea and a book of poems that you just take like a little poet's holiday over the week sometime and read poems. Or perhaps you buy yourself a new pen. Or perhaps you dress up in your poet clothes and go write a poem in a special place. I really think it's wonderful when we take care of that poet inside of us. I seem to feel that we're more inspired when we look after the parts of ourselves we want to nourish. So that's my dare to you. Do something kind for the poet inside you. So thank you for watching. Thank you for your poems, every single one of you. What a pleasure to read your poems. What a pleasure to be in touch with you in poetry and to be celebrating with you. Please send poems again by 5 o'clock on Friday. If you like this video, please like it. Thank you to everyone who does hit the like button. It's just really encouraging to me. Subscribe if you haven't. I really appreciate every subscribe. Just, again, very encouraging and lovely to stay in touch. And I believe if you subscribe, you get a little notice when I post a new video. So thank you. And let's have another wonderful week of poetry. And my best to all of you. Enjoy poetry this week.